because I didn't believe what my mother was telling me, that my cousin was in front of Back Bay shooting heroin in his neck. And I said, Ma, you can't shoot heroin in your neck, so we don't got to worry about that. And then I got a text from my cousin, and she was like, you need to go down there. And it was June 21st, 2021 when I went down. And he was completely unrecognizable. I have, pictures that I took, videos that I took. And when I got to Back Bay Station, I walked out and he was to my left on the ground, with a couple other people around. And this is not the guy that I was in the gym with. This is not the guy that I grew up with. This was someone I didn't recognize. And I wouldn't even put my hand on him because he was that unfamiliar. So I called his father and I'm like, is this him? I took a picture of him. And he woke up and I was like, kid, I got to get you out of here. And he was like, I'm not going. He's like, this is my last hurrah. That's what he said to me, this is my last hurrah. I said, what are you talking about, man? And after some time where he just was completely resisting me, I was like, all right, I'm going to follow him around. And we ended up down here in Mass Ave on Atkins Street. And it was the most third world country type of environment that you can imagine. I mean, just a wretched environment. And the sea of people that I saw standing there, to know that my cousin was there, and I'm looking at all these people, I was just floored that this could exist. I remember feeling guilty if I left, so I slept in my car because I lost him. And when I woke up in my car, I looked over, he was right there on the ground. So he had this particular spot that he would sleep in on the ground in front of the shelter. And so I remember the first night I left, I felt so guilty that I swore I was coming back here and to stay here and to fix his problem. I didn't know how. And one day I'm across the street and I see these two white ladies standing in the crowd, and I said, has anybody told them how unsafe this is? And that's when someone explained to me that they've got this program where if you've got addiction, they'll help you and they go above and beyond. And I'm like, I got the perfect guy to bring to them, my cousin. So I went to them and I said, ladies, if you give me the opportunity to just be here every morning so I can keep my eyes on him and maybe save him, I'd be eternally grateful. And Sue Sullivan, Carol Costello, these two women did something that I thought I was gonna have to come down here and use physical force to do. I thought this was a situation where compassion, kindness couldn't exist. And in order for this part to be understood, I have to rewind a little bit because I did a 5-year prison sentence for drugs. And towards the end of that prison sentence, I ended up in solitary confinement for my last 2 years. And it was in that situation where I felt, depression, loneliness, the worst of any human emotion that could exist. I had it then, but I had it sober. And so when I found my cousin on the ground, this one thing clicked in. I wasn't looking at a drug addict. I was looking at an injured person. And I was looking at a person who was going through every emotion that I felt when they slammed that cell door on me and said, we're not letting you off for 2 years. Except he wasn't behind brick walls. He was right there on the ground. So Massachusetts and Florida are one of the only two states that would allow you to commit somebody. And it was the last thing I wanted to do to him, so I stayed out here for weeks trying to talk to him, and he just wouldn't budge. So finally I got him committed. And when I got him committed, he was in there for about 90 days. And because Carol and Sue had let me in, I didn't want to just leave, now that I had got him, somewhere I thought was safe. So I stayed with them, and working in this group, working with these people who were suffering from the same addiction that my cousin has, was putting a human face on a struggle I didn't understand, because I was one of those people who would see a person with an addiction and say they did it to themselves. Until it's someone that you love so much that you're not saying that anymore. And each day we would walk these routes, I'd be with a different person and I'd hear a different story. And because I worked in these groups, the sea of people that I mentioned, they started to embrace me. So I went from everybody thinking I was like an undercover cop to, this guy, he's down here, he means business, he cares. And I started to learn, that it's the compassion, it's the feeling that you show somebody, that can change things, and it wasn't going to be putting $1 million in my hand. If anybody put $1 million in my hand, it would not have saved him. It was the love and compassion. It was the understanding. And so 3 years later, I can't believe it. It was 3 years that I put into this. And when my cousin got out, I told him, I said, I'll never do that to you again as long as I never see you sleeping on the sidewalk again. And I'm going to be out here every morning, man. I'm going to be over here working these crews every morning. And to keep my sanity, I'd come out here in the morning, I'd see these horrible things, and in the afternoon, I'd go work out, I'd go spend time with my kids and my family, because you have to balance this. You're seeing such atrocities, in the process of seeing my cousin in that condition. I had to record it because, what was happening to him, I didn't want anybody to forget, because I felt like there were people responsible. And when I would record these things, you're capturing other situations. So as I'm recording my cousin, I've got a mother on her knees begging her kid to come home. And that wasn't one time that I saw that or recorded it. You're watching other families completely suffer. And I realized, how selfish my thought process was. I came down here to fix him. That was it. And again, what Sue and Carol have created helped me put a human face on that struggle that wasn't there before. What I learned walking with these people who suffer from this addiction, because it's physical, it's advanced. And what I mean by advanced, I grew up here in Cathedral Projects in the South End. So going to school, going to the Blackstone, I used to walk by heroin addicts every day. And so, my subconscious, I think, just rejected that reality, until it was someone so personal, so close to me. And, you almost feel guilt. I don't want to digress here, but, it was just an unbelievable experience. I can't even believe how it's changed to something so good, where you walk over there now and you don't smell death. You could smell death. I'm going to tell you, if you're not standing with these people, if you're not walking with them and hearing their stories of their pain, you'll never figure it out. You'll never really understand it. What our eyes show us is not really what's happening. When people would walk with me and they tell me personal things about, their upbringings and how they were abused, and you see the little things that lead to this. I took getting locked up for granted. I was saved. I was saved by my own actions. The actions that led to me getting locked up prevented me from ending up like my cousin. And every day I saw him there, I was just like, that could have been me. I'm telling you, every day that I saw him there, I was like, that could have been me.